All right, so welcome. My name is Betty, and I'm speaking on behalf of our Orientation and Transition Programs Office, and we want to welcome you to our Wednesday webinar series. We've been hosting them throughout the summer, and this one is taking place tonight, along with a few more left for the month. We do have a couple reminders for you before we get into our topic for today. But this is an opportunity for you to learn more about some of the resources, engagement opportunities, leadership development, all at UVA here. So we're really excited to have our folks on the call today. Other reminders, there are some deadlines coming up, so be sure you are checking your new student portal regularly. I know some tasks have been added today, so be sure you check those. There are some deadlines that you need to meet for some of these task items. If you have any questions or if there's concerns about your portal, just reach us via email. Our email is orientation@virginia.edu. Also, be sure you are checking your UVA email address regularly now. This is the primary way that we can connect with you as a university. So a lot of information about your upcoming orientation dates, things you need to have ready before then, maybe information on academic advising. So be sure you're looking at that inbox regularly. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us, orientation@virginia.edu, and we'll get you connected if you're not sure where else to go. Okay, a couple more things. If you need to look at past recordings of any of our webinars or need to refer to tonight's webinar again, that will get posted on our Wednesday webinars website, so you can always refer to that. And then if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to our speakers directly. So I will let them take it away. Tonight's topic is fraternity and sorority life. And so we have Alex and Amanda on the line. I do want to give a disclaimer. We are having some severe thunderstorms in the Charlottesville area. And so us three as presenters are all on this call and from this area. If for any reason our power or anything goes out, please know that we will find a way to get our webinar recorded in a video format, and we'll get that uploaded anyways. But good luck. Let's hope our power stays on for the call. Take it away, Alex and Amanda.
Thanks, Betty. Hi, all. Excited to be here today. Um, we have a presentation that hopefully is going to outline kind of like the what of fraternity and sorority life at UVA, a little bit of the why you might join a fraternity or sorority at UVA, how you might join, and a little bit about the history of Greek life at UVA, because there really is a really storied history of Greek life at the university, and it's really changed and evolved a lot over time. So I hope that, if you have an idea of what Greek life is or fraternity and sorority life, I hope that information in this presentation kind of challenges that a little bit, and kind of helps to open your mind a little bit more to what Greek life actually looks like in practice at UVA. So, as Betty said, my name's Alex Winkowski. I am the Assistant Dean and Director of Fraternity and Sorority Life at UVA. I've worked at UVA for about 6 years now. I've worked in multiple different areas, supporting many different populations of students across the university. And I've worked with fraternity and sorority life for um, about 5 out of the last 6 years or so. I did my undergraduate degree at William and Mary, where I joined Sigma Phi Epsilon fraternity, and had an amazing experience. Obviously, I would not be doing this work if I didn't believe in Greek life and the fraternity and sorority system. And then I went on to receive my graduate degree in higher education and student affairs at The Ohio State University before coming to UVA.
Great, thanks, Alex. And like Alex said, my name is Amanda Cirillo. I am the Assistant Director for Fraternity and Sorority Life here at UVA. I have been here almost a year. August 19th will have been 1 year, so really loving my time here so far. I was at Clemson University for undergrad, where I joined my sorority Alpha Delta Pi. I then went to William and Mary for my master's in higher education, and then Cornell for law school. I have also been a sorority house director in addition to all those things, and really love working at the campus side and really getting to work with all different populations of students. So very excited to be with y'all today. So moving to our plan for today, we're first going to overview, who is Greek life at UVA? What is the fraternity sorority life? Who is a member? What does it look like? We're going to talk about each of our 4 councils, which you can see here. We're going to detail their history, how to join, how many groups there are, what does that look like, and then we're going to do some Q&A questions at the end that we've pre-selected. There will also be time at the end for questions as well if you have something that we just didn't address during this presentation.
So let's start off with some of the benefits of joining a fraternity or sorority. So overall, as we talk about all these different organizations and the different councils and all of the history, you're going to notice that they're very different. Not all the organizations are the same, and that's one of the great things about Greek life. But I think overall, all of these groups have in common that they are values-based organizations that, broadly focus on scholarship, leadership, service, and this idea of brotherhood, sisterhood, siblinghood, and connection. These organizations are also opportunities for lifelong friendships, as well as expansive contact networks during and after college career. So I have been in contact with my big brother from my fraternity for years and years after I graduated from William and Mary, and he supported me during really challenging times when I was in grad school. I often go back up when I'm from Northern Virginia in the Fairfax area, and a lot of my fraternity brothers live up there in kind of the Alexandria area. So we stay in regular contact. And I also have the benefit of, now that I work in this space, getting to meet a lot of brothers from across the country. And actually, my one of the alumni advisors for our chapter in undergrad is a really great friend. And I think without joining my fraternity, I wouldn't have any of these relationships, and it's been incredibly valuable to me. Fraternities and sororities also spend vast amounts of time and effort contributing to the greater Charlottesville community and to charitable causes. A lot of our groups have both kind of a large national philanthropy that they raise money for, and then a good number of our groups also work with the Charlottesville community and have a partner or kind of charity or support organization that they work with to directly work with and support our local Charlottesville neighbors in addition to their national philanthropy. And the last thing that I'll highlight that I think is really key here, depending on how involved you want to be with an organization. So I know it's kind of a little bit like forward thinking to think about, getting involved with Greek life, but what does leadership look like in Greek organizations? And really at its core, Greek life leadership is incredibly unique. You are working with so many different stakeholders. These are organizations that have massive structures. You're working with the students and the members of your organization. You're working with the university. You're working with your alumni. You're working with your headquarters. You are really navigating a whole lot of different systems. A lot of our organizations have houses. So you're working with your house corporations. So there's just a lot of ability here to be able to develop leadership skills that involve navigating multiple stakeholder priorities. And while it's really challenging at times, it's also incredibly rewarding and sets you up for a lot of success after you graduate. So one of the really kind of larger studies that were done a few years back and recently about membership in fraternities and sororities showed that there really is a lot of benefit to joining, both during your time at the university, but then also afterwards as well. So affiliated alumni, folks who are affiliated with the fraternity or sorority, were more likely to report feeling supported by faculty and mentors, and were 3 times as likely to have engaged in experiential learning, which means really given that opportunity to apply what you've learned in the classroom to real life practice, maybe through an internship or through research and things like that. More than 50% of fraternity and sorority alumni had accepted a job offer or found employment within 2 months of graduation, compared to just 36% of non-affiliated alumni. If I had to kind of talk about all the different ways that, your fraternity sorority membership might lead to job offers, I know that that's a lot of folks' mind, including parents, about what is my child going to do after they graduate from the university. You have increased professional connections from both alumni and current members, and also have a lot of support from current members to kind of get through the challenges that arise during college. And then lastly, 24% of affiliated alumni strongly agreed that they had a job or internship that allowed them to apply classroom learnings, as opposed to just 8% of non-affiliated alumni, which is really, really telling that not only did they have job or internship opportunities or offers, they also were able to take what they learned in the classroom and apply it in that job, which I think is a great return on investment in college, because a lot of folks who are going to college are looking to get a job afterwards. And I think that really sets you up for a lot of success. So this is just a little bit of kind of the why of fraternity and sorority life. And we're going to kind of get more into what our office does and talk more broadly about the community in a second here.
So our mission, our office, the Office of Fraternity and Sorority Life here at UVA, was founded in 2001, although as we'll get into in a little bit, the history of fraternities and sororities at UVA goes back way further than that. This office is post dates many of those groups. So what we do is we support our students in recognized chapters as they shape our organizations. And really, the ways in which we do that can be registering space, giving advice on how to navigate difficult situations, interfacing with other parts of the university, and connecting students to who's you might need to speak to plan an event with housing and residence life, or to ensure that a speaker who you'd like to attend for an event is there from career services, for example. We do things like that. We're really the nexus that kind of pulls together all of our student organizations and the other offices of the university that serve them. We work on strengthening student self-governance and leadership for individual chapter and governing council letters. Your levels, you'll probably hear the phrase student self-governance a lot. It's something that's really foundational to the UVA student experience, where our students make a lot more decisions and have a lot more autonomy than at many other universities. And so our students here are doing things like planning recruitment, really with input from us, but we are not the ones doing it for them, that we really don't do much for them. It is just guidance and advice and planning, but students are the ones controlling their own experiences, which is something really unique about UVA student life and fraternity and sorority life here specifically. We also maintain relationships with alumni and chapter headquarters staff. So today we are sending out end of year reports on, hey, how's this chapter doing? Did they complete requirements that we set? What are they doing grade wise? We do lots of communicating on that level, like Alex had mentioned about interfacing with stakeholders and really navigating all of those people you need to communicate with. We do a lot of that work as well. That's another service that we offer. Some fast facts about our fraternity and sorority life community here at UVA. 26% of undergraduates are part of the Greek community. That's just over 4,600 students this past semester. It goes down in the fall and then up in the spring because, as we'll get into at the bottom of this slide, recruitment here doesn't happen until the spring semester across all councils. Our community spring 2025 cumulative GPA was 3.64, again across all chapters, which is a little over a tenth higher than the all undergraduate spring cumulative GPA you can see. So really, academics are a priority, and that's reflected not only in what we say, but in what we do. In terms of philanthropic efforts, our organizations did over 30,000 service hours in 2024-2025. For local organizations, larger national projects, it really varies from group to group, but they all have that same mission in mind. And raised over $460,000 for charitable causes. And this past year, again, local causes, national causes, partnerships between organizations, really they do everything. And the results, again, don't lie, they speak for themselves. It's a really incredible amount of money raised. So, as I mentioned, recruitment here does not happen the first semester you are at UVA. This is an intentional choice each council has made to say, hey, we want you to acclimate to the university. We want you to discover your other interests. We want you to, get your feet under you and say, who do I see myself wanting to be? Who do I want to be around? Do I feel like this is a choice I want to make of a community to join? And really giving yourself that time to explore those choices rather than feeling rushed into, no pun intended, oh, I have to do recruitment, the day classes start, or I need to sign up and I don't even know what I'm getting into. Really, the philosophy here is you should know who you are and what you want to be and have the time to and space that you need to do that. So we will talk more about for each specific council what that looks like in terms of joining opportunities and what the timing is on that. But just know, again, it's not many schools that offer this experience, and we really think it's worth it, and our councils do too, because it's an experience they've chosen to continue. So as far as safety and wellness goes, our office requires every fraternity sorority to complete programs in 4 thematic categories every academic year: alcohol and other drug education, hazing awareness and prevention, sexual respect education, and inclusion and respect education. And below are some of the university partners that we work with in planning and promoting these events. These are not the only groups that we work with, and organizations will also schedule their own events. Their national organization may offer something that, fits one of these categories. And so we'll say, yep, that counts. That looks good. This is what we need it to cover. But we expect every fraternity, every sorority, every group does education on all 4 of these programs. And I believe it was 80% of our groups did achieve all 4 of these in the past year. So it's not just something that we say, it is, again, something we see that they are doing as well.
So now that we've talked kind of broadly about kind of why you might join a fraternity or sorority, talked about health and wellness, got some like demographic information or some statistics to kind of talk through, we're now going to get into talking about our governing councils. So the way that fraternity and sorority life is structured at UVA, and including and often at other institutions as well, is that our chapters are kind of divided into 4 different councils, and the councils have many different roles, as we'll talk about. Some of them are really involved with recruitment, others are not really involved with kind of the membership intake or recruitment process for organizations. Some of them have more representatives on the governing bodies, others do not have as much. So there's a lot of difference between these, but it kind of helps to know that all of our organizations fall under one of these councils. I'm going to start off with talking about the Interfraternity Council a little bit. That is part of my portfolio. I'm the primary advisor for the Interfraternity Council. And like I mentioned earlier, when I was an undergrad at William & Mary, I was also a member of the undergraduate Interfraternity Council chapter. So the Interfraternity Council was established in 1934, but don't let that year fool you, because fraternities have actually existed at UVA since 1852, at least. So it goes really far back. So back when the first fraternity was founded at UVA in 1852, there wasn't this governing council idea because there was just one organization. But over time, as more organizations were founded, there became a desire to create a governing body, governing organization that oversaw things like recruitment, particularly to make sure that all houses and all groups had an opportunity to meet new members and had a more structured recruitment new member process. So they cover 26 nationally affiliated organizations. Well, there's actually 25 nationally affiliated groups, and there's one group that's a local organization. And many of them affiliate with a group called the North American Interfraternity Conference. We're going to talk a little bit about these. This is one of those stakeholders that we often talk about, that we talked about earlier as well. This is a group that often supports interfraternity council organizations across the country, supports things like recruitment, also advocates for them on kind of a national scale, does a lot of lobbying work, with government to make sure that fraternities are advocated for. They have a governing board of 9 executive committee members and 2 at-large members. A really great way to stay up to date on the happenings of the IFC and all these councils is to follow them on Instagram, which is just at IFCUVA. They will post things like recruitment information, which I know is going to be a big question that a lot of folks have, and I'll talk about a little bit more on the next slide. But they'll also post information about their larger kind of like philanthropy events. They had an event called the Who Games in the spring, where they had a lot of different chapters coming together to compete to win the Who Games, and had relay races and had a whole bunch of different activities and things like that. So they have council-wide events that they've also been expanding as well. But let's talk about recruitment, because I know that that's going to be a thing that's in a lot of folks' minds. So the IFC recruitment process is a centralized, semi-structured recruitment process, where participants register in the fall. Registration will open probably around the first day of classes or a little bit after, and will stay open almost through Thanksgiving break. You'll have many, many months to register and to think about it. Registration is around $50 or so usually, or a little bit less. Something good to know is that there is a no questions asked fee waiver for anybody who feels like the $50 is, out of, not possible for them. There's just a little form that folks fill out, and that's something that the IFC actually started just a few years ago. So there's no questions asked. If it's something that is going to prohibit you from going through the recruitment process, you can absolutely fill out a form and have that waiver applied to your registration, so you don't have to pay anything to participate in the process. An important date to remember is the move-in date, the date to be back before classes start, which is January 11th. Classes start on January 12th, so most folks are going to be back that day. The first day of recruitment is going to be on the evening of that January 11th. So there's going to be an orientation and then open house the first day of that, where you'll kind of go around and visit all the different houses and get an idea of which ones you're most interested in. Will either happen on that 11th and 12th or the 12th and 13th. That's kind of TBD, but we know that the first day of recruitment is going to start on January 11th, the day before classes start. So that's the day you want to make sure that you're back here, kind of settled in, and the dorms will be open on that day as well. So kind of talking through the process a little bit, and then I know Amanda will talk through the Inter-Sorority Council process a lot. The one thing that does kind of permeate with both the IFC and ISC recruitment processes is that they are centralized processes. So this is a process that allows all organizations to kind of put themselves out there and allows all the students and all the folks who are going through the process to put themselves out there to all the organizations. As we'll talk about later, it really behooves students to put themselves out there to as many organizations as they can during that open house period and really keep your mind open and cast a wide net. I think that that is the best way to really figure out which groups you are most interested in joining, because again, these are groups that you are hoping to create lifelong relationships with. So it really should be a group that you feel very comfortable being around. Recruitment usually lasts around 2 weeks or so. The process used to be around 3.5 weeks, and they've kind of shortened it over time, which I think many folks are very grateful for. There are some rest days in there, but essentially the process is you go to open house, you're invited back to some houses for first round, and then you kind of whittle them down as you go to second round and third round, and then you have your bid day, and you have the time where you get an offer of membership from an organization. As you are narrowing down your choices, the houses are also narrowing down their choices as well and kind of figuring out and pinpointing who exactly they see as like a really solid fit in their organization. So it is a little bit about mutual selection, but it's not as structured as the inter-sorority council process that Amanda will talk about in a couple slides.
Great. So next, in terms of establishment, is the Inter-Sorority Council, established in 1970, 5 years after women were admitted to the university. There were already a couple inter-sorority council sororities at UVA for the nursing school, the education school. There are some schools in which women could be enrolled, even though they weren't considered full-time enrolled anywhere in the university students. So those chapters have existed, but 5 years later, there was a critical mass to create the Inter-Sorority Council. And I want to address the name for a second because you may have heard of your friends talking about Panhellenic as the council for the chapters that they want to join. You might have friends, family members who are members of Panhellenic sororities. This is the same thing. The term Inter-Sorority Council is exclusive to UVA. It's pretty unique because in 1970, the women of the Inter-Sorority Council wanted to be seen as equals to the Interfraternity Council, and so that was the name that they chose. And over time, that name has stuck. So you'll hear about ISC, Inter-Sorority Council. Please know that's what a Panhellenic sorority is. That's the same concept. It has a different term here. As you'll learn, many things at UVA have a unique term. This is one of them. So here at UVA, the ISC is the governing body for 14 National Panhellenic Conference affiliated sororities, big national organizations. There are 9 executive board members and then 14 chapter representatives, one for each chapter. Again, like Alex said, for IFC, I highly recommend checking out Virginia ISC on Instagram if you are at all interested in membership. That is where they post a lot of events, upcoming information. You will see a lot go there, and for the individual chapters as well. Instagram is just a good medium for publishing that sort of stuff. So I would recommend looking there. ISC will debut a revamped website with a link that, again, you'll get more emails about, and resources will also be listed there. For now, I would say go to the Instagram if you're interested in learning more or just getting more details. So in terms of the ISC recruitment process, it is very centralized and highly structured. Registration will open in September, again, right around the first day of classes. It closes right around Thanksgiving. It costs about $25 to register. The IFC has lowered the price for that this year, but as Alex had mentioned with IFC, the same process applies. If you feel that that cost is a burden to you, no questions asked, you just check off a button and the fee gets waived. So that hopefully will not deter anyone from wanting to participate. IFC wants everyone who is interested to be there, and so that process also exists for the same purpose. The way that IFC recruitment works is, again, it's a more structured version of kind of what Alex had described for IFC, where you'll register to participate the first 2 days of recruitment, potential new members. You'll hear the term PNMs a lot. That's what that's referencing, potential new members, people who are interested in joining. You'll go to every single house over the first 2 days, and then you will rank in priority order. Here's the chapters I most saw myself fitting into. I have the best conversations with. I really would love to go back. I want to see more. And these are the groups that I liked, but maybe not as much as the other groups that I liked more. And then the chapters will do the same sort of ranking process. And we have a big, beautiful software program that will match those all together, and they'll spit out your schedule for the next round. And unlike IFC recruitment, one big difference is you are mandated to go to all of the rounds that you have scheduled, unless, if there's an accident or you're ill, if there's some conflict, obviously that's understandable, but it's not as loose as IFC is, where you can say, oh, I don't know, I don't really want to go back. This is a process where we really want you to make connections and meet people and give houses a second look that maybe you didn't know if you were going to connect with them at the first time. So you'll go to all events over the first 2 weekends before classes start and after classes start. The first day of recruitment is a few days before classes start in the spring semester. It's January 8th. You will return to your dorm that morning. They will be open that morning. It's the Thursday before, and the recruitment starts that afternoon. So if you are from out of state, out of country, if you are traveling, please keep that date in mind. It will be really difficult to accommodate your schedule if you're not able to make it back that day. And you may just end up missing some rounds, which you'll be excused, but you just might not get invited back to every sorority because they just didn't get the chance to meet you. So please, if you're at all able to keep that date in mind, if this is something you'd like to do, please be back January 8th because that's the first day of recruitment. Recruitment will go from the 8th to that Sunday. So it'll be the first 4 days. Those will be the first 2 rounds of recruitment. And then recruitment will stop, if classes start Monday. And then that Friday, recruitment starts again. If you have class conflicts, your schedule will be accommodated. We'll ask you to fill out a form. You'll let us know. You will not miss class for this process. It'll be that Friday afternoon into the evening, Saturday, and then bid day where you'll receive your offer of membership and it'll be a really joyous, happy time will be that Sunday. So it's fairly compact. It's a lot. I'm not going to say it's not sometimes tiring, sometimes difficult, but I would say it's a lot of fun and it's really, really worth it. And we really are hoping to see y'all there. And I will mention at this point, we got a good Q&A question that says, with larger class sizes and more people rushing, is a bid still guaranteed for everyone? And I'm going to just take executive prerogative that this is a question for inter-sorority council recruitment. If it's not, I'm sorry, fire off another question in the chat. So the way that the number of recruitment bids is determined is it's the number of women who have agreed to accept a bid at the end of the process divided by the number of chapters. So it's an elastic number that will always adjust to accommodate as many women who are participating as we possibly can. When women say, oh, I didn't do well in Rush, I didn't get a bid, when I say 99% of the time, I truly mean there were 2 people last year out of over 1,000 who got not invited back to a single house. Everyone else is withdrawn from the process of their own volition by their own choice, which is totally valid. But if you stick through the process, you will get a bid. Yes, there is not a hard number after which people just don't get bids. It is elastic to how many people have signed up because we want everyone to be able to participate. So, this is a very structured process, and you will also receive information and emails about info sessions with the Inter-Sorority Council that are designed for you to ask questions about what does this process look like? What do I need to wear? Where do I need to be? How does this all work? You'll be able to ask those questions of them then if you sign up for recruitment, which we hope that you do. You will also receive a recruitment counselor. You'll meet her in December. She will be a disaffiliated 3rd or 4th year sorority woman who has been through recruitment before, knows how this process works, and will really be there to guide you and help you questions you might have, last second concerns, anything like that. She will be your point of contact. So there's really a lot of structure and support to guide you through the process because it can be a lot. You're meeting a lot of people all at once. But the idea being you will meet as many people as you can and really develop those connections that way. So moving into a totally different experience, the National Panhellenic Council, or the NPHC, to contrast with our other groups, was established in 1991 as the Black Fraternal Council. These are our historically Black organizations, although certainly not exclusive. Anyone is welcome to join any of our organizations. They don't discriminate based on race. These organizations were first founded at UVA in the 70s, again, once Black students were allowed to enroll here. There's a governing body of 7 members, and there you'll hear them talked about as the Divine Nine a lot. There are 9 of these organizations. Currently, 5 of them are at UVA. The other 4 are inactive. You could certainly bring them back if you wanted to work with alumni about doing so, but they are not here right now. So these 5 organizations are really vibrant, a lot of history. Again, I recommend following their Instagram. You're going to hear that from us a lot, but it truly is the best way for students to just communicate events and ongoing stuff with their councils and with their organizations. So I highly recommend that you check it out. And then how do you join? Okay, so the process is called intake. It's not rush, it's not recruitment, different term, but it's the same concept. How do I join one of these organizations? Their process is super decentralized. It is not controlled by the council. There is not a set group schedule we've all agreed to. It is very much unique to each specific organization. And the way that each organization conducts it is the priorities are maintaining confidentiality and preserving the individualized nature of the experience. So this is not something you're going to brag about on social media that, hey, I'm joining XYZ group or I'm interested in checking them out. It's really something that's supposed to be for you and not to convey publicly, hey, this is what I'm doing so that you all think I'm cool and I have clout. It's really for you as your own process because it's what you want, not because it's what you want other people to see you as. So you will not necessarily know someone is joining one of these organizations until the new member reveal, which will be a big presentation celebration, at which point all of the new members of that organization will reveal themselves. And it's really joyous and a ton of fun. I highly recommend going to one of those events if you can while you're here, whether you're a member or not. So it's different. And each group will have an event that we will have them advertise in our office with a flyer that says, hey, we have an interest meeting. This is where you'd go to formally express, I'm interested in joining this group. That group will post a flyer a week before that event, and we will have a big corkboard in our office where you'll go and see, hey, is XYZ group doing intake this semester? Are they accepting new members? When would that meeting be? That flyer will be there for you to see it. We also recommend checking out chapter Instagram pages. Some of them will also post those kinds of events there. And we also recommend attending events to connect with chapter members. This is really a process about getting to know people and picking one group and saying, this is the group I want to join. Not as much meeting every single group and then sort of narrowing down your options. We want you to go in knowing this is the group I want to be a member of. So it's very different, but just as valid of a process. And it just gets you to the same point in a different way.
The most recently established council is the Multicultural Greek Council. I am the also the primary advisor for the Multicultural Greek Council, but Amanda helps a lot with that work too. Um, so this was established in 1999, oversees 9 cultural interest fraternities and sororities. So there are groups that have more of a PISA or Asian Pacific Islander or South Asian interest. They have also a Latino fraternities and sororities as well. They also have a all gender inclusive fraternity, or now called dieternity, which is like the gender neutral term, but rather than fraternity or sorority, they call themselves a dieternity. A group called Sigma Omicron Rho, or SOR, that is open to folks of all genders, and is also open to folks who are, you don't have to identify as part of the LGBTQ community to be a part of that organization. They really are open to everybody. So that organization is also open to all folks as well. These organizations, they have very different histories, different cultural interests. They're almost all affiliated with the national headquarters. Sigma Omicron Rho is a local organization, so that gender inclusive group is more of a local organization. They are like the first chapter. They're working on trying to expand into a larger organization, but almost all of those groups are affiliated with the national organization. Their Instagram is at MGCUVA, so again, like we've said, that is really one of the best ways to follow them. And you'll also see on that page kind of a little bit about all the different groups, and would also encourage you to follow those individual groups as well. I'll briefly talk about the recruitment slash intake process. So there are some groups that call the process recruitment. There are some that call it intake. So it's not really one word that kind of fits across all the organizations like perhaps the other councils. Again, it's decentralized. There is not kind of an overall structured, centralized process conducted by the council. It really is individual. And again, a lot of that is around, having discretion, not sharing out that you're joining an organization, making sure that they're maintaining confidentiality is really important to these organizations. And so again, very similar. Many of these groups will do a new member reveal closer to the end of the semester to kind of show off their new members. The new members get to reveal themselves. And again, like Amanda said, they were wonderful events, and everybody's welcome to go to them. You don't have to be a member. And like Amanda said, would really encourage folks to have that be part of their experience at UVA. It is really wonderful and something that you'll remember. Amanda and I went to, one of us went to all of them this year. And so we really were able to see how much work these organizations put into these presentations. And I can't stress that enough. Like, this is a really special occasion. So please look into that. As you're walking by our office in Newcomb Hall, it's right across from, one of the dining areas. So if you're going to walk past it, check it out, see if there's any events coming up. I would definitely encourage you to attend those. And definitely follow the individual organizations on Instagram, go to their events, indicate interest that way. That's a really great way to get connected to them. And again, similar to MPHC organizations, these organizations will also post a flyer a week before an interest or info session so that folks can attend that and express interest as well. And that will be posted in our office in Newcomb Hall 171. Let's get into some frequently asked questions. So there are some questions that over time, as we've done these webinars and as we've talked to parents, we've done a couple resource fairs so far in some of the first orientation sessions. There's some questions that we just get a lot of. So we were like, let's just add these in. And so last year we added these questions in to kind of hopefully address some of those things. So the first one, what about alcohol? So I know that that's something that parents are thinking about, students are thinking about. It's college. We're talking about fraternities and sororities. That is often kind of associated with alcohol. And I'll say, alcohol is part of some students' college experience. Like, I think that that is a given. That being said, there are many FSL community members and students who do not drink or do not consider drinking to be a very pertinent part of their college experience. I think that there is a myth that everyone who is part of Greek life is drinking all the time. And I want to emphasize that that myth is kind of self-perpetuating because folks believe that. So then they think they have to participate in it, and then other people have to participate in it. So it just kind of creates this cycle. And you can break that cycle, and you're allowed to make whatever decision you want around alcohol. What I would say is, I know it sounds like it's not cool or something. These are organizations you want to feel comfortable in. So ask the chapter president, ask someone who you trust in the organization to give you like a real perspective on what alcohol culture looks like in the group. The last thing you want to do is get involved with a group and then realize that that culture really is a lot more present than you yourself want it to be. And that really would kind of stink. So I really hope that you'll kind of push through like the awkwardness of that and actually ask questions about that, because the best answers you're going to get are from folks who are in the organizations. So I really, talking to an executive board member, talking to the president, someone who, knows about the organization is going to be the best way to kind of suss that out. And again, in the fall, you do have the opportunity, right, to be at UVA. So you will have the opportunity to meet folks from different organizations. They'll be in your classes. You'll see them out at social things, all that. So, you'll get an idea of that also in the fall. So that also is another great thing about spring recruitment, is that you get the fall to kind of think through that and kind of learn more about all the different organizations. And like we said earlier, we really do emphasize these 4 different areas of learning. We have multiple offices like the University Police Department, the Gordy Center that really focuses on hazing prevention. The Gordy Center is named for Gordy Bailey, who died as a result of a hazing-related incident many, many years ago. And we also have different local partners who we work with in our Office of Wellbeing, and they have great presentations that they've just recently updated, to kind of talk about, not to encourage folks to not drink, but how to drink responsibly and how to make alcohol a part of your experience and something that, doesn't, doesn't cause harm, but something that, you can monitor and something that you can, be mindful of. But all that said, we understand that it's college, and we understand that, and alcohol is present in Greek life as it is present throughout the university. So I think it's better to be upfront about that and to also just be more proactive in learning about the culture of these different organizations as you're getting to know them.
So, on the topic of being upfront, what about hazing? You've probably heard a lot of stories, rumors, things online, true facts, and we want to go through what does that look like in this community. So, being transparent, hazing happens at UVA. It happens at every university. I'm not going to claim that somehow grounds are magic here and it doesn't happen. It does. What we can also say is here's what we do about it, because hazing's not acceptable here. So, Who's Against Hazing is a state mandated educational training program that all students participate in throughout, I think, orientation or their first semester of UVA. At some point, you will do it. It requires all students to participate in hazing prevention training during orientation or a little after if you happen to miss it. So you will know what hazing is, how to address it, the spectrum of hazing behaviors that are harmful and not okay, where to report, what to do if you suspect a friend is being hazed. You will know what to do. You will have the tools and be empowered to be able to say no and stand up and report hazing if you're experiencing it or if a friend, someone you know, is experiencing it. We also require 70% of active chapter members in fraternities and sororities to attend a hazing prevention workshop each year. Again, these can be through our partners with the Gordy Center or student health and well-being. It can also be through their national organization that can sponsor a presentation or academic session that they can attend. We expect them all to do it, and they do. We also have linked here the UVA Campus Hazing Misconduct Report that Alex is also going to show you, which, again, for transparency, you can see every organization at UVA that was found responsible for hazing over the past 4 or 5 years, and details about what happened, what the sanction was, what the finding was, is this group recognized or not. That is all available to you to see here on this website. I do encourage y'all to look at it. I will also say here, there are a handful of fraternities that are not recognized by UVA because they lost recognition for violent hazing behavior. Those groups do recruit. You have the First Amendment right to join for freedom of association. We can't stop you. We won't stop you. But what I would encourage y'all to do is just look at these groups, see what they were found responsible for, see what that behavior was, and really ask yourself, is this something I would want to participate in? Is this something I feel okay with? We just encourage y'all to just really think for yourselves. Again, we won't tell you what to do. We're not going to pretend like those groups aren't out there, but at the same time, there's a reason that they're not recognized by the university, and we want y'all to know what that is and have that information, be able to make those assessments for what you find comfortable and not comfortable on your own. So for reporting, if you have a concern, if you see something, you say, I don't know, I feel so great about that, here's a story. There's an anonymous hazing hotline you can call that, again, you can leave a message and give details about what you've seen, experienced, heard. Just report it at virginia.edu is also a general reporting line, and you can detail what kind of concern you have on that page. You can submit it through there. That one's not anonymous. Your computing ID will be collected as part of that report. It certainly won't be shared outward more than needs to be, but your name will be attached to it as part of that, which is useful for us to be able to contact you should we need more information or have more questions to ask. But these are the ways that the university encourages you to report any sort of concern you might have, anything you might have seen or experienced. We want y'all to know and to tell us, to know that hazing's not okay, and these are the things that we're doing about it.
So another question that comes up a lot is how much does it cost to join one of these organizations? And the truth is, it's really hard to answer that question because it really varies very widely across the groups. So, I have seen dues that range from 15. I've even seen groups that some semesters have had $0 for dues because they've been okay with their finances. So they've been able to offer, free membership of their organization. So anywhere from that up to $3,000 for some organizations per semester. I will say, you often will be paying more, maybe like $1,000 or more for some of these organizations. That's a real estimate for joining your first semester. Often, first semester dues and joining fees are going to be more significant than subsequent years. A lot of things also factor into this too. There are considerations like living in the house, where you also might have the opportunity for a meal plan. This is for those IFC and ISC organizations that might have a house and have a meal plan there. You could choose to eat at the house a couple times a week. And so they offer different meal plans there. And something that's important to know about this is that scholarships are available from both individual chapters and at the council level and often at the headquarters level. I would do a lot of research into, particularly if you're looking at an MPHC or MTC organization, if you are like, I know which organization I want to join, I would go ahead and start looking at that now and start thinking about, what opportunities are there out there? If I'm looking to join, how can I make this more financially accessible for myself? It's a little more challenging with the IFC and ISC organizations, right? Because you don't necessarily know which group you're going to join because you haven't gone through that recruitment process yet. But those groups, particularly the ISC, I will say, has done an amazing job of financial transparency. So all of the organizations are required during the second round of recruitment to take time to talk through what dues and finances look like for the organization. So you'll see a sheet that goes line by line into how much do these parlor fees, they call them sometimes. They call them like t-shirt costs. There are some optional costs in there. There's how much goes to your national organization, how much goes to the local organization to do programming and things like that. So you will see these forms, and you'll see in the ISC potential new member handbook that all the potential new members will get kind of a breakdown of those fees, and then it'll get even more detailed during the recruitment process pretty early on. So you can be informed during the process and even before the process about how much is this going to cost to meet those organizations. So finances should not be a secret. They really should be something that the organizations are open about as early as they can possibly be in that process so that you can make a real informed decision.
And then our last question before we go to any more questions that y'all might have is, what advice would you give a new student? And boy, we've been giving a lot of advice during orientation over the past couple weeks, and we will continue to do so for the next few weeks and really onward forever. So truly the biggest piece of advice Alex and I stress is, please consider all your options across chapters, across councils. Just because your friends are certain that they're going to join a specific chapter, a specific council, doesn't mean it's necessarily right for you. Just because your parent was a member of a specific group and you're a legacy doesn't mean it's a group you need to join. You may have a sibling who's here who is in an organization already, which is awesome. It doesn't mean you have to join that group too. Really do what's right for you. And that might require some time. You might need to figure out, hey, where do I really see myself? Who are these people? Where do I feel like I fit in here? We really don't want to see people set their hearts on XYZ group, go through for ISC recruitment, for IFC rush, for MPHC and MGC, intake options, and then be left heartbroken because they didn't really keep an open mind and say, where do I feel like I have a realistic chance of actually joining? It happens every year and we don't want it to happen to y'all. So please consider your options. You may feel really great about one group. That doesn't mean there aren't other groups you wouldn't be happy in as well. Really, really just keep an open mind. You'll hear stereotypes. Every university has stereotypes about every fraternity, every sorority, every group. XYZ chapter only takes people from the South, or people with blonde hair, or people whose net worth is $1 bazillion. And generally those aren't true. Quite frankly, these groups, especially ISC and IFC, are so big that statistically they can't be true. It's not true that all 220 women in an ISC sorority are blondes or are from Virginia or what have you. It's just not. So keep that in mind. Really keep a healthy grain of salt in mind when you hear these stories, these blurbs. And keep in mind too that you will meet people during intake, during events that you go to, during recruitment. And keep in mind, hey, is the person that I met, do they fit in with this stereotype I heard? No? Well, then maybe it's not true. And I don't really need to give it a lot of thought. Just keep that in mind as well. People will talk, you will hear stories. Trust yourself over what you hear other people say. And, last bullet point, there are so many options to get involved. It might not be Greek life. It might not be Greek life right away. For ISC and IFC, we see a lot of men and women who either go through recruitment once before and then do it a second time, or who, don't join as first years. Maybe they transfer in, maybe they had other obligations, maybe they didn't know it was for them and they joined as second years. Both Alex and I joined our organizations as second years, and we don't feel like we missed out on anything for it. That was when it was right for us to join. So keep in mind, your path may not look like everyone else's. It might not be like what you've seen on TikTok or Instagram or what you heard from a friend or a neighbor. Just because someone else is doing something doesn't mean it's going to work for you or that it's right for you. So really be true to who you are. Keep all of your options in mind when you're getting involved. One last tidbit I'll add about the financial component, because we know finances are a thing that is on a lot of people's minds, is UVA offers an experiential fund for students eligible for financial aid to do stuff outside of classroom. We don't want you to just get admitted, you go here and you can't afford to do anything else and you don't really get the full UVA experience. It's called CAV Fund. You'll hear more about it if you haven't already, while you're here. But it gives up to $1,000 for out of classroom experiential opportunities, and we do see a lot of students use it for dues for fraternity or sorority. So that's just another option to keep in mind, that even the university wants you to do things that are outside of the classroom and get involved in stuff. So with that, I believe that's all of the scheduled advice we have. If anyone has any other questions, the Q&A feature is really wonderful for that. We would love to answer them. You're also welcome to visit our website, visit our office, especially come by if you haven't been here for orientation yet and you want to come by and say hi to us. Please, we would love to see you. We have free merch to give away. We have those little puffy peppermint candies that people love so much. We're very friendly. We don't bite. We would love to have you come by. So please keep that in mind. We're, like Alex had said, right across from the PAV, which has a lot of food options during the school year when it's open. So our doors are always open. You're welcome to come by. You are also welcome to email us if you've got questions that aren't sure how to formulate yet. Maybe you'll think of something tomorrow. Please email us fsl@virginia.edu. We are more than happy to answer those. And like I said, if you think of your question and you want to come ask us, you are also welcome to come do that as well if you haven't been here yet.
Wonderful. I did put the link to the Cavalier Fund website in the chat as well for folks, just so that you have access to that and you kind of can read up on it. It's not something that will open for applications until, the school year starts in the fall, but it is something to kind of read up on now because it's a fantastic opportunity that is fully funded by alumni and friends of the university to make sure that folks can have extracurricular experiences outside of just the classroom. So, it's a fantastic opportunity to get some financial support.
There are no silly questions. If they're anonymous, I'll never know you asked. I can't even judge you. I don't know who you are. Please just ask them if you've got any burning questions. I promise we would really love to answer them. That's what we're here for. Oh, we got a question. It worked. Yes. What can you say about informal rush in the fall? Gosh, oh my gosh, we would love to talk about informal rush in the fall. So, like we both mentioned earlier, it's not open for first years. It's for transfers, people who have already been at the university for at least a year or who have transferred in as second years or above. So it does exist for, I'll let Alex speak to the IFC fraternities. I guess I'll start with the IC side since that's the side I know best. Every year, half of our organizations are eligible to do informal recruitment. That doesn't mean they will. It just means we literally pick a median number that is the size of the chapters. And if you are below that half, it means you are eligible to get up to whatever that magic median number is. For example, this past spring, it was 221. So groups that were under that could go up to that if they wanted to. They don't have to. So we don't know yet which groups will be doing informal recruitment for ISC in the fall. That number is determined on the first day of classes. So if you are here this fall, maybe you go through recruitment this spring, maybe you don't, and it's next fall and you say, hey, I don't know, I kind of want to check one of those out. What does that look like? The ISC will have an informational interest meeting, both for all first years just to get to know more about the university, but also if you're second year above, to meet the organizations who are doing informal recruitment and who would love to get to meet you as well. So that will also be advertised through chapters Instagrams. There will be lots of messaging out about groups who are interested in doing informal recruitment. It's usually, like I said, it's fairly small, mostly for second years and transfers, but it does exist. And it is another super awesome way to join an organization without having to go through formal recruitment for either a first or a second time. So it's small but mighty is how I would put it.
And then for the IFC process for informal recruitment, um, that is really something that many of the chapters do not take advantage of. So it is really kind of rarely used. We had, I think, a couple chapters who took a few guys in the fall this past year, and often that's guys that weren't able to participate in the spring rush process, but they knew somebody, they knew the president of the chapter, they knew folks in the chapter, and they really wanted to join, and they were able to get that offer of membership in the fall. Again, it's only something that's open to new transfer students or for folks who have been at the university for a year. So for IFC Rush, it's similar to the other more formal recruitment process. It's not nearly as structured, and the organizations really can kind of figure out if that's something they want to participate in, but it's not very common for IFC organizations. Do you create a rank list is another question. That is a fantastic question. So I will talk about kind of like the ranking list that I see on the internet and from folks who talk about kind of the different tiers of the organizations, like different social tiers of the organization. So there are groups that, are like the most like the best and like the most social. There are ones that are in the middle and the ones that are like not as social or like not as desirable. And those lists are completely useless. They are entirely useless. They tell you nothing about the people who are actually in the organization, and they reduce an entire group, often of women, 221 folks and hundreds of women to a number. And I think that that is terrible. And I think it really, really takes our community to a place of stereotyping and a place of putting folks in boxes that they shouldn't be put in. So I'll talk about, I first wanted to mention rank lists like that, because oftentimes when I hear rank lists brought up, they're often brought up in terms of like different social tiers and kind of a ranking based on that. The other kind of rank list that I've often seen more formally kind of done by universities is kind of an academic rank list, like looking at, which groups have the highest GPA, which groups have the lowest GPA for organizations. That was something from my understanding that used to happen, that the councils used to offer for folks, but it's not something that we do currently. Again, in line with student self-governance, we really look to our councils and to our chapters for what information they want to share, and that's not something that they have been open to sharing as of right now. So we don't have a rank list like that. What we do have, though, is information, about which organizations are present. We also have maps on our website of like where the houses are and things like that. So it's not ranking, but it kind of gives you an idea of where the different organizations are, particularly for IFC and ISC. But that's a good question because I know a lot of schools. I know that Virginia Tech, that's the first one that comes to mind, puts out a list every year of the kind of GPA rankings.
Mhm.
And then lastly, you see what is Dirty Rush, which I'm happy to start with, and then Amanda, you can fill me
Yep.
in if there's anything else that I kind of miss out. Dirty Rush is a very nebulous term. It means a lot of things it means different things to different people. To me, Dirty Rush, what people are often talking about is the idea of first years getting to know members and organizations, particularly IFC and ISC organizations during the fall semester before the formal recruitment process. That is not not allowed. That's allowed, right? There's nothing keeping you from making connections with upper class students in these organizations. And frankly, we want you to make an informed decision about what organizations you want to join in the spring. And if you have classes with folks, if you get to meet folks, that's not something that is like against policy or against the rules of the council. It's just that you can't go through a formal recruitment process and can't go through a formal joining process until the spring semester. So the term Dirty Rush kind of makes it sound like it's kind of like underground and things like that. But in reality, oftentimes when I hear folks talk about it, they really just mean getting to know certain chapters in the fall. Now, one word of caution that I will say is that organizations can only take so many members. And so keep that in mind when you're meeting folks in organizations and you really get along with them, you're really interested in them. There are many such cases of folks feeling really invested in an organization because they feel like they made great connections in the fall. And then that doesn't pan out in the spring with their recruitment process. So don't get your heart set on one specific group before the formal recruitment process. I think that applies to across the IFC and the ISC. These processes are intended to give you a chance to get to know all these organizations and what they bring to the table. So by all means, get to know folks across the university community, folks who are in fraternities and sororities, folks who aren't. But overall, you're allowed to make connections and make sure that when it comes time to do formal recruitment in the spring, or if you're looking at informal recruitment in the fall and you're an incoming transfer student, that you are really looking at all your options and making sure that you're making the best decision for yourself.
Yeah, just to build off what Alex was saying. So we, especially for ISC historically, there have been prohibitions on first years and active sisters talking to each other, being around each other. Those are gone. That's not a thing. Quite frankly, it never was enforceable because no one is walking around slapping phones out of people's hands and saying stop texting each other. It's just not possible. It never happened. So we want you to meet people. Absolutely. Please, gosh, meet people. Don't go in, saying I've cloistered myself from the world and I don't know who any of these people are. It's probably not going to turn out super well for you. Like, we would like for you to meet people. And like Alex had said, it is easy for individual members of a group, especially ISC and IFC, but I'm really specifically thinking of ISC, to say, we love you so much. You are totally going to be a sister. You are so great. And they may, hopefully, they mean it. But you are great. You got in. You're awesome. They want to see you as a sister too. But just because one or two people or a handful of people have told you this doesn't mean it's going to happen, because recruitment is a complex, big process that the entire chapter participates in, not just a handful of people. If it's just a handful of people, that's called your friends and that's called hanging out. And that is a different less democratic process than how sorority recruitment works. So again, every year we see women who say, they tell us, I was told I did so well. I was told I was totally going to get a bid and I was absolutely going to be a member of XYZ group. And I don't think their friends were leading them on or lying to them. I think they believed that and they meant it, but that doesn't mean it's going to happen. So again, for ISC and IFC, make friends, absolutely meet people, but do keep an open mind, because just because someone tells you you are so in, you are so going to get a bid, does not mean you will until you actually physically have a bid card in your hand, a little manila card. So please just, keep that in mind, that yes, meeting people is great. We would love for you to do that, and being wary of what they're saying and what are they saying, that what can they actually deliver on, because that is a really big component of dirty rushes. People's hearts get broken every year. And yes, the most popular groups, the top tier groups, even though that system, like Alex said, is truly very, very useless, they're the best at recruiting. That's how they work. They're good at making everyone feel really welcome and special, but again, definitionally, math wise, it's just not possible to give everyone who likes them and thinks that they are cool a membership bid. It just can't happen. So that's why we encourage you to keep your options open and really keep an open mind, because a group you may not have heard of or a group you may not know as much about could truly be the group that you fit in with and just want to call home once you get the chance to know them. But if you go into Russia recruitment with these blinders on, you say, I only want to talk to XYZ and I am not going to go out of my way to make any meaningful connections anywhere else, you're probably going to end up really disappointed. And we would hate for you to do that. We don't want to see that. Any other questions? Because there are no silly questions. This is the place for such things. This is where you can ask things and we will not judge. Quite frankly, we're not going to remember. So you can just ask us whatever, as long as it is within bounds and talking about fraternity, sorority life stuff.
Well, again, you're always welcome to reach out to us over email, fsl@virginia.edu. Appreciate you all logging on today. And if you're watching this in the future, thanks for watching. And I'll pass it back over to Betty to close us out.
Yes, thank you, Alex and Amanda. Participants, thanks so much for joining us. Definitely use your summer, your orientation, to connect with other students, to connect with the FSL office at our resource fair during your orientation as well. And ask your OLs who are involved, and your orientation leaders who are involved in FSL as well about their experiences. But feel free to look for the recording on our Wednesday webinar website. All right, take care. Bye.